Ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll call the meeting to order. We have one trustee who is due here any moment, but I think we'll get started. I'd like to welcome you all to the regular meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the May 10th meeting, and these minutes have been distributed to the trustees previously. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes that were distributed?
No, but would like to move approval.
Move approval. Have a motion made and second. Please cast your votes, and the minutes are approved. Thank you. The second item on the agenda is the ratification of some claims, and the claims, again, were in your packet. They all are associated with TIF, except for one that comes out of the general fund. Are there any questions or comments about the payments?
Move approval.
A motion made to approve them. Second made and second. Please cast your votes. And the payments are ratified. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is some items for individual consideration. Item 4A, amendment number 2 and change order number 2 for some projects associated with our Project 180.
Mr. Chairman, this is an amendment and change order on what we call Streetscape Project number 3. Which is the one that's in our area right here. It's the one that does Main Street and Walker, and you experienced Streetscape Project number 3 on your way to the meeting this morning. We have Mike Clark from the Public Works Department that can just go over and hit a few of the highlights of the amendment and the change order for us this afternoon.
Good. Thank you, Mike.
As we did at the last meeting, I'll try to cover some of the larger costs, but if you have questions about any, please ask, and I'll try to get you details. On the amendment for this particular item, the quantity bid for natural concrete was insufficient for the actual field conditions we experienced. This amendment increases that item by 432 yards at a cost of $18,576. There were various deducts on the paving portion of this amendment, and then on the water sewer portion, there was a revision to a water line to miss a proposed OG&E conduit build. So taken together, the amendment is an increase of $6,607.37. The change order portion, the plans did not include an item for sodding, and that sodding was behind the back of the sidewalk between it and the right-of-way line in the area south of Sheridan. It was just an omission in the plans. That increase is $22,045.40. Again, there were various smaller adds, and there was also a revision to a water line to meet an existing shallow water line that was in the field, and that was $6,650. The change order adds that to a total of $58,585.40. Taken together, the total of the amendment and change order is $65,192.77.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Are there questions of Mike? So the total changes, when you look at number 1 and number 2 together, are the 4.4% that we've got in here. So we're still under 5% in the original contract, given the kind of work it was in the contract. Excuse me. Victim of technology. Low-level technology, I'll have to admit, but I'm still a victim. Okay, we have to approve the change order and the amendment. Are there any additional questions or discussion? I move approval.
Second.
Second. We have a motion made and second. Further discussion? Cast your votes, and it is approved. Thank you very much. Item 4B is an audit contract with BKD LLP, and this is a follow-up of a practice that we've used for several years throughout the city, where the trusts and subgroups of the city use the same contractor that we use for the city work.
That's correct, and BKD is the firm, and this is the second year the city has used them. Last year we went out through a competitive process and took proposals, and they were selected, and so this is the second year.
Okay. And the actions required here is just the contract be approved The contract's for $17,000. How does that compare with last year's?
It's a good question. Brad, can you help me out on that?
We don't actually have that number. I believe it was in the $16,000 range, but we can come back and get you.
As a slight increase, it
Yes.
covers it. Is there any additional work proposed, or is that just to cover additional costs?
I do not believe so, but I'm going to ask our trust accountant to answer that question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think you recall, I think the trust needs to hear. Last year, we did ask them, did we not, to cut their price a little bit because of the financial challenge we had. I know we did for the city contract. I'm not sure we did for the trust contract or not. So
I'm not aware of that.
We did it from the city standpoint. You're correct, Mr. McAtee.
As far as the question on the services performed, it's going to be the same as that was performed for the fiscal year 2009-2010 audit.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah.
I'd like to move approval.
A motion made and second to approve the audit contract. Is there any further discussion or questions? Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Item 4C is a core report for the OKC Technology Business Launch Initiative. And I think we have a representative. Rex, are you going to give the report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the trust. Nice to be here. I think last time our CEO, Tom Walker, gave this report, and he kept turning to me and when there are questions, and so this time I'm here. Hopefully I can turn to somebody else. Here to give you an update on the Oklahoma City Technology Business Launch Initiative that was begun in July of 2010, and we're in the fourth quarter of this initiative. We have a third quarter report that we provide to the Economic Development Administration, and that's a part of your packet. And then I have a little PowerPoint that kind of take you through what's happened in the last quarter. Just as a matter of a refresher, the initiative itself is designed to grow technology-based startups in the Oklahoma City area. And the services that are being provided that were over and above what we normally had available include the Entrepreneur in Residence program, our Executive in Residence program, the growth of our Seed Step Angels investment group, to redesign and expand our fellowship program, some events, and also refurbishment of the facility for our clients. So those are the 6 things that we've been working on for the past 3 quarters. And moving forward, to give you an update on what's happened in the third quarter, first, the Entrepreneur in Residence program. This particular program is really targeted to bring well-known entrepreneurs from around the country to Oklahoma City and have these ladies and gentlemen come in and sit with the CEOs of our companies, our client companies. And the way that it's gone in this quarter, we had 2 different gentlemen that we brought in, and they provide not only a day-long training on a particular topic, but they also do some one-on-one mentoring with our clients on those particular topics. And this quarter we had 2. The first one was led by a gentleman by the name of Bill Payne that we brought in, and he was really brought in to talk to these entrepreneurs about raising funds. And he was here for 3 days and worked with the total between the 2 was 18 different CEOs or 18 different companies. The second person that we brought in, a gentleman by the name of Bill Botts, who is an expert, written many books. He's a seasoned serial entrepreneur from California who came in to talk about governance, in particular how these new entrepreneurs and new companies can set up boards of directors, how they help choose those directors, and how they govern their startup, which we found to be a huge issue. We had 18 companies that participated in those ENR. Am I too close? Am I too close? Okay, I'm sorry. And then after those sessions, we invited specific targeted CEOs that were really at a point in their history where they really had to buckle down and build these boards or had funders on the line. We spent one-on-one time with them, with these guys from the entrepreneurs in residence, and spent a few hours the next day with each of those companies. And then they can continue those after that week, but we got the relationship established. So we're real pleased with the turnout, and we targeted 18 specific companies in the Oklahoma City area to do this. On the executives in residence program, as you'll see, this is really more intense one-on-one work with a particular type of executive. In our case, we have targeted the sales side of the business, and we have contracted with our sales executive in residence. And what they have done is they have come in, I say they because it's not one individual, it's an organization called Initial Call, who is out of Norman, and they have nationwide staff that help our companies to identify, quantify, and then actually help them contact their customers around the country. And they help them hone in on that. And during the third quarter, we had 16 of our companies receive services from our sales executive in residence. They did, as you can see, the numbers, 134 sales calls, 15 sales appointments. Even better is they develop what we call playbooks. This is where they go into these small startup companies and actually develop their sales protocols, their sales cycle. They write scripts for their salespeople. They will help them hire and interview sales staff. And then they can go on to help them actually make cold calls on potential customers and set up appointments for the CEO. And as you all probably will remember, most of these companies have a staff of 2, maybe 4 people right now when they start up. So this is huge for these companies. And one of the biggest outcomes from this has been where we advised a company that their pricing structure was not going to get them where they wanted to go, and this executive or this group recommended an alternative pricing structure, which is now taking off. So we're very pleased that we were able to go in and find that. The other thing that we did in the third quarter is we finally are getting some traction on our CFO in residence, which is part of this program, where we're going to offer some CFO services to our client companies to help them get through these early stages, because this is one of the things they don't like to hire. It's one of the last hires. Yes?
Rex, take your microphone down a little bit. There you go.
Right there? Thank you. By the end, I'll get it right? So we're excited about that particular part of the program. The third thing is the Seed Step Angels expansion. The Oklahoma City office, or the Oklahoma City group, we have finally got the group cohesive. We've got membership agreements, a code of conduct, and we've also developed some other accreditation paperwork for these guys and women, men and women, because we are trying to bring a lot of professionalism to this group. There's a lot of loose organizations around the state. None of them have the professionalism that our group in Oklahoma City has, with all of the standard documentation, the due diligence that we've brought to this program. We have, in the third quarter, we screened 4 investments. We had 4 companies make presentations to the group, and we have now 6 companies in due diligence that we're looking at. Last quarter, if you'll remember, we had 1 investment made for $150,000 in one of our companies. So we didn't have actual close-in investment in the third quarter, but we've got 6 companies in the pipeline, so we're very pleased with that outcome. Right. There it goes. On the fellowship, we've got a lot of traction on this. This is where we're trying to bring in students from universities, Oklahoma City University, OSU, OU, and even now some from East Central University who are moving to Oklahoma City to participate. We began work with 2 fellows that we brought to I2E this spring, and they worked with us, one from OU, one from OCU. And then we took our applications for our summer program, where we took 39 applications for that program. We interviewed and selected 6 students. Now 7. In the fourth quarter, we got another one. So we have now 7 students that will be working. 5 of those are going to be working with our client companies. They'll be going out working, and they will stay with these entrepreneurs and what it's like to do a startup. 2 of them will be with us in our offices here in Oklahoma City. We've also begun working with OMRF, and we're going to help them find a law student to come in and have a fellowship with OMRF in their technology transfer department to help them with doing some of their IP work. And that's pretty satisfying, too, because we think that's going to be a great opportunity, because OMRF will have maybe have an opportunity for a job after it's done. So we're very pleased with that. Our networking events, I'll go through this one fairly quickly. Our networking events, what we're trying to do is make these connections between investors, entrepreneurs, and service providers, and to get a lot of this synergy going in Oklahoma City. We've had a tech night out where we invited all of those folks to in one place so we could they could meet each other. We have, I did our open house in our new facility, and many of you have seen pictures of that. And we also finally hired our specialist that the grant proposal had in it that is helping us with getting the word out. We're now going to have a specialist that can do our website, get all of these events and networking opportunities out the website, take videos. This gentleman that we hired is a videographer. It's amazing what he can do with helping us get the word out and make our website and a really good place to go. We're very pleased with that hire. There we go. This is where I'd really like to just take a moment because we're at that point in time where we are ready to start and have collected the outcome data that we're trying to get to. In the fourth quarter, we send out a survey to all the clients. We collect data on their revenues, their payroll, the number of jobs, their investment money that they've received from investors, their average annual wages. All of this is the kind of data that the trust and I2E and all of us in this deal this is what we're trying to get to. We're tracking activities, as you can see on below. We've served 20 clients total in the third quarter. We've got the 7 students. We've done 3 events to promote all of this, but the real measures are those above. We've sent our survey out. We got the raw data last week. We are in the process of analyzing all of this data, and what we'll come back to you in the fourth quarter is with of just the companies that we've touched with this initiative. We will go back and we will look at their jobs, investment, revenues, payroll, average wage, and we'll compare that from July 1 through June 30 to give us an idea of, are we starting to see any impact in the first year of this program. So to me, that's where that's where I'm excited. I have not seen all the data, but I'm looking forward to that, and that's what I think will be a big thing for us, and should be for the trust as well. For the next steps in our fourth quarter, we're right in the middle of finalizing our CFO in residence. I'll tell you, we have found this to be a very difficult position to fill. As a nonprofit, we're not paying what normally a CFO of a company might make, and it's very difficult to find the kind of person and experience we'd like to have to help these companies at the range of salary that we have set up. So we're being very methodical, and we're not trying to cheat ourselves. So we've been slow in hiring this person, but it's been a very difficult road. I have another engagement for our entrepreneur in residence. We're going to be talking about, in this one, how to build a management team, which is a big deal for these small companies, to try and find the people, which is a huge problem. He'll be coming in June, and we'll have a week long there where we'll invite targeted companies that need that kind of help. Our sales executive in residence program is just going great guns. We're really pleased with the results of that. And we're going to begin reporting the outcome data and gather all that data. A couple of things that aren't on the slide that I wanted to call to your attention that we think are noteworthy for the trust. Myself and my colleague Casey Harness at I2E and Tom Walker, our CEO, were invited by the EDA to make a presentation at their annual conference in Albuquerque. And the topic was the Oklahoma City Technology Business Launch Initiative. They're very proud of this particular project. And so they asked us to come to Albuquerque and present to the audience from around this region. We were very well received. We got a lot of interest, a lot of people wanting to know how we got this group of supporters together. And because as we looked around, there aren't very many places in the country where the city, the chamber, the private sector, and nonprofits are all on the same page trying to do the same thing. So it was very nice, and so I was very proud to be there and represent the trust in the city of Oklahoma City. Another thing that's interesting is that there are some unintended consequences of these kinds of partnerships. After this partnership got going, we found a lot of things that we were doing through this initiative fell right in line with the Chamber's entrepreneurship initiatives. And instead of both of us trying to build staff and capacity to do all these things, we decided to join forces, and we've created the Office of Entrepreneur Development, and it's being staffed by a loaned executive from the Chamber. So we're accomplishing a lot of things that both the Chamber, I2E, and the city are wanting done, and we're not duplicating or any resources. So it was an unintended but very nice consequences that we're able to do all that and not spend any extra money. So it was a pretty nice deal. And finally, I'd like to end this by offering that when we first started this over a year ago, we went to each of the trustees individually to talk to them about what this was and why we thought it was important. But there are some new members at the trust, new trustees. And so I'd like to offer to the new trustees and anyone else, if you would like us to sit down for 30 minutes to kind of give you the history and bring you up to speed on how this happened and what we're doing in a little bit more detail, we would certainly love to do that. I know a quarterly report is not very much time to get your mind around what we're trying to do. So I'd offer that up, and we'd certainly take any time to do that. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my report. Any questions?
Are there questions? Oh, Frank.
I assume looking for a qualified CFO, you would look at the retired ranks.
Yes, sir.
To get the quality that you need. I know you can't compete head-to-head, but you certainly could maybe do that with a retired CFO.
That's correct, Frank. Most of the people we've interviewed are in their late 50s or early 60s and have either taken an early retirement or are planning to retire. It's still been a very tough go, but we've actually ended up having to get a firm to help us find somebody.
What's your annual budget?
The annual budget for this program, over 3 years, we have $2 million, so it's about $630,000 a year. And we're a little under budget this year. And by the way, we'll come back to you with a budget number in the fourth quarter report as well.
Are there questions? Rex, we said the report on your progress would be a fourth quarter report based on fourth quarter numbers. I assume you're on a fiscal year like the city is?
Yes, sir.
And so we would expect that report July or August then?
It will be, it's due to EDA by July 30th, 1 month after the close of the quarter. And so we'll have we'll finalize not only what we did in the fourth quarter, but we'll have an annual that will have a cumulative data on it.
Okay, thank you.
As well. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? The chair would entertain a motion to receive the report.
Move it.
Second.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion? Cast your votes. and the report is received. Thank you very much, Ray.
Mr. Chairman.
Next item on our agenda is the general manager reports, but it's changed slightly since you've done it before, and I think our request for some little background information on some of our projects.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Today's general manager report reflects some additional data regarding our 6 strategic investment program projects that we have going on right now. I refer that to you. It's located on page 3, starting on page 3 and 4 of your general manager report. I've got a little PowerPoint here for each individual project I wanted to go over with you, give you a little bit more detail. I do want to point out, on the Affinia one, I do have a correction I wanted to point out to you, but we'll get to that in just a second. Affinia was our first project that qualified for our gold bonds or our strategic investment program. We awarded a contract with them back in February 2008, and for 154 jobs, for $400,000 of the total allocation. In their first fiscal year, which is in 2008, they hired approximately 36 people with a salary of around $36,000. Affinia is a company that manufactures and distributes aftermarket parts for vehicles, struts, shocks, those type of things. And when they originally came to us, they were going to bring a bunch of engineers from Indiana. If you'll recall, with that project, the company was looking at whether to close the Oklahoma City shop or close one in Indiana. Either way, we were either going to gain jobs from Indiana or we were going to lose approximately 131 jobs to Indiana. Through this program and other programs, we were able to get Affinia to stay here and move those jobs here. They did one after we approved our agreement with them. They decided to not move their engineers down here, and that's where in the report there's a slight thing. They elected not to relocate their engineers down here instead of to relocate. So, and in doing that, that lowered the total overall salaries of all their employees, and that has resulted in over the last 2 years where they did not qualify for any payments. On the bright side, though, they went ahead and created a lot of jobs. They had 131. Since that, they've hired another 109 full-time jobs, and they have another 69 part-time jobs. So while they did not qualify in the last 2 years, we still think that's a good thing because there are additional jobs being created out there in Oklahoma City. The next project is the wood.
So Brent, in summary, really, we put an incentive out there, and it was pay as you go, pay for performance.
Yes, sir.
And because of those incentives, they chose to move a presence into Oklahoma. And it's a significant presence, but it doesn't fall within our criteria, so we're really not paying much and still reaping the benefits. So the incentives got us a project.
Yes, sir.
And it really didn't cost us much, and we still have jobs in Oklahoma.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So it's not the success we were hoping for, but it's a different level of success.
And I think that's a good point, because if you look at this, you might feel that we failed because we made no payments for 2 years. And it's not a failure at all. It's just a change in the results, very positive change. It wasn't quite what, as Jim pointed out, quite what we had in mind. But we have some really good jobs created here, and we've got a company located here that we didn't have before, and we were in danger of losing those people as well.
And you never know on these deals what's that thing that tips the balance to come to Oklahoma City, and whether this was it or not. We may never know that, but it may have been.
Well, the indication was at the time that it was an important part of their consideration. I'm sorry, Brett, go ahead.
That's okay. The next project is the Wood Group project, and this one again was approved by our trust in September of 2008. The Wood Group manufactures submersible pumps that are used in the oil and gas business, and they were to create 202 jobs, and we allocated $800,000 to this project. In the first year, they created 10 jobs. They actually created more jobs, but that's the average over the first year time period. So at the end of the first time period, I think they had around 35, but when you spread it out over the entire year, there were 10. For a good, with a payroll of $417,000 and an average payroll of $41,000. In 2009, the economy had a downturn, and they had to lay people off. And when they did that, they went below their threshold, because one of the key things in this program, what we try to do is identify what their baseline employees are in the beginning, and then when they go, anything they go above that, that's when we incentivize those jobs. When they go below that, we do not incentivize any jobs there. So they fell below the baseline, but when I was talking to them, they are very optimistic out there now, as they were recently purchased by General Electric, and they think they'll be above their baseline by July of this year. Yes, ma'am?
Brent, is there any chance or threat that it potentially could have to relocate now that it's now its owners?
There's probably always that potential, but in talking to the company, they're very optimistic with their new ownership. The third project here is the CSAA, that we all know it as AAA. They moved some operations from California out here, and we had an agreement with them back in September of 2008. This is one I would say has really exceeded our expectations. We did the agreement in 2008. We had to wait until they finished building their new facility out off of Memorial in May, and then a year after they moved in their buildings they qualified for these incentives. In the first year, they created 554 jobs, and with the payroll of roughly $16 million. Currently, there's about 635 jobs out there. One thing that, if you'll recall with their agreement, we thought they were going to move some jobs from Tulsa down here, and we discounted how many jobs. At the end of the day, they only moved 5 down here and left the others up in Tulsa, so that was a good thing, and that's why the growth is much more than we anticipated.
Could I interject a
Yes, sir.
question? We do not incentivize, or do we, moving jobs from one part of the state to Oklahoma City?
We do not. If you move here, but after you move here, if you want to grow from after you move here, we will incentivize to grow.
And so the jobs that they were going to move from Tulsa down here were not going to be incentivized?
That's correct.
Thank you.
They were not incentivized.
Yeah, that's similar with Continental Resources. Yeah, that's the same plan. They're going to move down here, not incentivizing the in-state jobs, but the growth jobs will be.
And then the next project is OrthoCare Innovations. This is one where we did something a little different. They're to create 83 jobs. They're an orthopedic and prosthetic technology company. We entered an agreement with them in August of 2009. At that time, they were setting up their facility over in the Presbyterian Health Foundation, and they had requested $150,000 to acquire furniture, fixtures, and mainly equipment for their facility. And we actually have done that. And over the last 2 years, they've created 13 jobs and maintained those 13 jobs. That has provided them a credit of around $53,000 towards that $150. I want to remind you that there are executives from that company that provided personal guarantees on that $150,000, so, and that's still in place. In talking to the company, there's a new product line that they're very optimistic that will increase their production and be able to which will require them to hire more staff. So they're optimistic right now. The next one is Advanced Academics. This is the education facility that moved into the old Bunty Candy Factory in Bricktown and created their headquarters here. We entered into an agreement with them in September of 2009 for 250 jobs. In their first year, they created 17 that actually qualified. I want to point out to you, though, they actually hired more, but again, they did not meet the threshold, so with the way our agreements are written, they have to meet those salary thresholds that they promised in the beginning, or we do not incentivize them, or we do not provide them the payment. So right now we're working with them on providing the documentation for this last year. And the last project is Paycom. We entered into an agreement with them in March of 2010. This was for Paycom, which is an Oklahoma City-based company, to build their headquarters here up off of the Memorial. 492 jobs. We allocated $1.9 million to that project. To date, if you'll recall how that project was set up, we're utilizing the GOLD funds to bring a water line to that facility along with a sewer line too, also. And we partnered with the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust, and to date we transferred about $1.4 million to them as they're putting in those lines as we speak. In their first year, Paycom has created 29 jobs. They averaged 29 jobs over the first year with an average salary of $38,000. Their contract requirement was a little under $37,000, so they exceeded that. They currently have 79 employees, and they look forward to opening their building later this summer. So, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Other questions? Frank?
Roughly, what kind of economic impact does a $35,000 job generate? Consider all of it.
Typically, when you plug it into a model, it's going to be a 2 to 2.5 times impact on your economy. So a $35,000 job is roughly $80,000, $90,000 economic impact on your local economy. That's just
A question?
I do. Thank you for the information. Could you elaborate for my sake the GOLT allocations as they're identified in each of these programs? When an entity does not earn a payment as indicated within an FY, are these obligated funds somewhere where a payment is billed against, or are these somehow sitting there to where you can maybe revisit an allocation if you think that a recipient is trending to where they're not going to earn it and it's therefore available to other people?
What we do is we enter into agreements with all these entities up to 7 years. Historically, we have not had I'll try to answer your question in a simple way.
I'm afraid I asked three, so
apologize.
hopefully you found your way through it.
We will go through and identify how much we would need to allocate to it. And when we say GOLT, it's the General Obligation Limited Tax Bonds, and we just allocate that amount to that project. And that money is essentially appropriated for that project. Our fund right now, we have over $35 million in the bank right now after we've done 2 bond issues. So we set that money aside, and that's the maximum amount we will pay them over the 7-year period. It's just a matter of them creating the jobs at the level, at the pay range that they said they would do, and then based on that, then we would pay them a certain amount annually for each one of those jobs.
Okay, so we're not revisiting the appropriation in thinking that they can't proportionally get there in year 6 or 7.
We try to incentivize them in the agreements to create the jobs quicker, earlier rather than later.
Sure.
We pay them more on the front end than on the back end. But we are structuring our new contracts in a way where if they do have an issue, kind of like a FINIA, where the 2 years they didn't qualify, where the trust could terminate the contract with them, and then we could set that money back aside for another project.
Okay, so the bond proceeds are sitting there, and I recall from the kind of orientation that you shared with me that the cost of touching the funds is really pretty low. Your administrative is really pretty low. So I guess you're managing arbitrage, reverse arbitrage, all those kind of issues.
These bonds are actually taxable, so we do not.
They are taxable. Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And, you know, the companies are making decisions. So they come in, we cut a deal and have a commitment for X amount of money. They're planning to they have a business plan they're executing, and they're going to, phase that in years, 2, 3, and 4, or whatever. And something happens and it's delayed, they know what that commitment is. They know that after, that they've got up to 7 years to work that out. Then after that, they don't. So they have an understanding of what the rules are, too, regarding those monies. So that way, that may factor into their business planning without having to come back to the trust to do some
Yeah, that makes sense. I certainly don't want to demotivate. Just wondering if resources are tight, if there's a need to pull, but apparently there's not.
I think that would be bad faith if somebody came in, made a business decision based upon our incentives.
And we move the ball?
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Larry?
It's called General Motors.
We'll strike that from that. Anything else, Greg?
Any more questions?
Any more questions?
The money that's left over, if you have 2 or 3 years out of the 7 that they don't perform, and so there's some funds left, does that revert to the general?
It reverts back to the overall pot of money that we have. Yes, sir.
But again, if they gear up greatly and hire a whole bunch of people in year 7 and use it all up, that would be there available to them. But they know what the maximum are, and they know what the rules are as they're going forward.
And the contracts have a drop-dead date. There's an end to the contract. So.
Correct.
Just thank you for this comprehensive overview. It was very helpful.
Oh, you're welcome. I wanted to also point out to you, you might have read about in the paper, still moving along on the outlet mall project, and they made some more announcements of Polo was coming, so I know a lot of people are excited about that. And so they made some announcements last week, and we're looking forward to an August 4th, grand opening of that. So we always like sales tax here in Oklahoma City.
Telling them at my department meeting yesterday that we have some exciting opportunities because we have not only a new outlet mall that's opening up, and it's maybe near Yukon, but it's in Oklahoma City, so you can tell your friends and your family and everybody to go out to the outlet mall and spend money there. Then we also have opportunities to spend money at the new Whole Foods, and that's by Nichols Hills, but it's in Oklahoma City, so you can go guilt-free there also and spend your tax dollars in Oklahoma City and encourage our friends and families to take care of these new economic opportunities.
Yes, it is. There's no guilt.
From my standpoint.
He doesn't feel guilt. That's not a and there's this anthropology store moving in there also. Another opportunity.
Yes, Anthropology has announced that they will be going into the Classen Triangle.
So we have, when you get through shopping for food, if you have any money left over, you can buy something at Anthropology's.
Also, that anthropology store that's going in was not incentivized.
That's correct. But the chamber worked long and hard to get that there, and we owe them a lot of appreciation for that one. Are there any comments, additional comments from the trustees? Comments from the staff? Comments from any citizens? Hearing none, we are adjourned.